So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name's Harry Welby-Cooke, and despite my surname, I grew up in the Free State. I am the joint franchisor or country partner for ActionCOACH in South Africa. And we're a business coaching company and have a team of almost 40 coaches around the country that work with entrepreneurs. And whilst today's got absolutely nothing to do with that, it fed a lot of what you will hear today, because last week I reached out to a number of our clients and was also appalled at some of the stories and just the destruction and the sense of loss, which is really unnecessary. And what I'm going to share with you today is what I've had to go through as a South African, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, as a boss, as a father, as a son. And it's my journey to get perspective and get some answers to the questions I was asking. And I said to our team on Monday morning, I would present today's session if nobody arrived, because it's been good for me. And that's what I hope to impart with you through the course of the next hour, is just some perspective to maybe assist you getting through what is not the brightest moment we've ever had in South Africa, but one that will hope you give you some tools, some areas to focus on, some different ways of thinking, and then will allow you to hopefully move forward in a sustainable and a successful way, whatever that way may be. And you'll see why that is relevant, as I say, as well. So we're going to cover off on today on 11 areas we, you and me, and I use that we very specifically because you'll see it's going to come up every now and again in the session, the word we, because we have been affected by this. And I'd like us to start off by sharing in the chat box one word that describes how you felt in the last 10 days in particular as we've been going through this. What's one word that really describes the feeling of being a South African or non-South African living here? And maybe there's some of you that have joined from abroad too. You know, what is the one word that describes how you're feeling? Because I've had a range of different words that come to mind. Frustrated, angry, yeah, but actually just pissed off. Hopeless, disillusioned, disappointed, frustrated, and then a lot of the words that you guys are putting up there too. And I see the word disgusted a few times. Absolutely, if you watch what's happened, it's easy to feel absolutely disgusted. And that's how we feel. So we need to understand that if we want to move from where we are into a place of healing, we must first understand that collectively and individually, we've been through trauma. We've had a range of emotions coming our way that have been forced upon us, and we need to find a way of dealing with that. And I think the first thing to understand is that you will not be able to put a plaster on this, brush it off, and say, right, let's get going. You might find it easier than others, but I think the last thing we need to do is just to sweep this under the rug and say, okay, well, let's roll up our sleeves and let's get going. Because it is a process of healing, and trauma doesn't just heal on its own. And therefore, we have to acknowledge the pain that you've gone through. If you're angry, be angry. And one of our coaches used some really interesting words on our Monday morning webinar and said, go into a room and have this conversation with yourself. But have this conversation with other people. It doesn't help if you don't talk about it. Because the reality of the trauma we've been through is some people, even those not directly affected, will end up with post-traumatic stress syndrome. The anxiety levels are bubbling up for let's say decades, actually in some cases, but definitely the last 18 months over the COVID corona period. And now we've had this. So it is going to be an issue. And therefore I encourage you, if you are not okay, and that's perfectly fine not to be okay. If you're not okay, I encourage you to really go and seek some professional help. Most medical aids, you can actually do that through your insured benefits. So finally, actually get something back from the medical. But don't try and ignore this, because it is a real issue. And I've been amazed, despite some very positive people that have been really directly impacted, how the exact opposite indirectly involved people have been affected that aren't even close to the scenario. So it is important to acknowledge that, deal with it, talk about it, and get some professional help where you need to, because you now need to lean on others. Now, many of you on this call today are entrepreneurs. You're business owners, and it is probably the loneliest avenue, the loneliest choice, the loneliest journey you could ever undertake, because you're always trying to be strong for other people. And that's the last thing that you need to be doing now. So yes, there's elements of that, but I encourage you to lean on other people, talk, engage, ask for help, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you're okay. Because just like they say on an airplane, put the oxygen mask on you first before you even help your children, because you cannot be there for other people if you're not okay. You can only give what's already in your bucket. And if you're not filling up your bucket, you cannot give out of that. And then the important thing is to talk about it. And somebody said the other day, oh no, I'm trying to shelter my kids from it. Don't. I'm trying to absorb most of the impact on the business, and keep it from the staff. Don't. Because that uncertainty, that not talking about it, makes it worse. And I've had some really interesting discussions with my 11-year-old, the youngest of my children, going, why did this happen? And what's happening? And is it okay? And isn't it okay? And have the conversations. It's really, really important to help you get through the trauma of what's going on and even think about moving into a healing space. It's not just going to happen. So I want to really encourage you to do that. And whilst this is a very busy kind of slide on your screen, I want you just to see that this is a process. A lot of change has happened in a very short space of time. Now, whether we go through small change or massive change, and some of the shifts that we've seen in the last 2 weeks in particular are fundamental change shifts. There's a process we go through. That process can be short, that process can be long-term, the process can have good success at the end of it and can have disastrous consequences. But if we are in that kind of slippery slope, that anger phase, where we first had fear and now we feel threatened and we feel guilty and depressed, that's okay. If you are in denial, we'll talk a little bit about that just now, but you need to get out of denial and face the issue. If you are feeling disillusioned, that's okay. I'll share with how you get that back on track today. But you're going to have to go through that curve to get out the other side. And it's similar to the 5 stages of grief. And in a lot of cases, that's what we're going through now. We're going through grief. You have to go through that process. And one day might be okay and one day not so okay. And just when you think you've got through it, you might have a bad day, or you might not have been affected in the beginning, and it will hit you quite hard again. We face these things all the time, so we need to understand that it's a process to go through, which is critical to help us get through to the other side. But now, myself, I felt challenged this week, or this last 2 weeks. I regard myself as, I think I am the most proudly South African person I know. There might be more proudly South African people out there, but I'm mostly the proudly South African one, the positive, the belief in the future. And these are some comments that I heard said to me. And for the first time probably ever, I get to really think about them. South Africa is beep, beep, beeped. There's nothing good. There's nothing positive. It's doomed. It's failure. We must get on a plane. We must go. And I've always said, I've had the benefit of traveling around the world. I've got 2 brothers, one that lives in the UK, one that lives in America. And I go, well, I'm quite happy here. But I needed to face that this week, because is there hope? Is there a future? Will we actually get through it? Is it worth it? And therefore, I had to face it, and I'll show you how. But those comments, I can, whilst understand them because I went through them myself, I can tell you with absolute certainty, they are absolute BS. And the reason I can say that with such certainty is if we just reflect very briefly on some recent history events. Last year, they attacked Washington. Government institutions with the biggest military in the world couldn't control the violence, and people lost their lives. And we have, in America, we have racial tension, and we have xenophobia, and we have all sorts of drama, and that was just last year. If you go back in your social media, you might find that in 2019, you also had a picture of the Eiffel Tower, or you put one of those nice little covers on, you know, we support you, France, we support you, Paris, when they were burning down Paris. And even for a soccer game 2 weeks ago, we had riots because we missed a few penalties. These things happen. And you've already seen it with some people that partook in all this disgusting behavior, apologizing, going, I don't know what came across me. And I feel ashamed that I did it. Yes, because we are sheep. And when you get into that mob, good, honest people do stupid things. So I know that whilst we feel like that, here's a bit of perspective. Everyone is affected by this. Not black, not white, not young, not old, not good, not bad, not wealthy, not poor, everyone. Every single one's affected by this. And we must understand, particularly for those that are younger, that don't know, because we have had a whole history since 94 where things have been pretty safe, pretty okay. But before then, I remember being at school and having to get under my desk because there was gunshots, and having things blown up on our soccer fields because there were mysterious bags left, and we were at a school next to the police station. And where South African was burning, and we thought it would never come right. And where the sad loss of life we had last week was what happened every weekend. And we mustn't kid ourselves today, still last year, one weekend, 45 people were killed in gang violence. It happens. 20 billion is the direct damage that they think done, mainly obviously KZN and a bit of Gauteng. 50 billion the impact to the economy. Okay, our politicians steal that every year that the Auditor General can find. Marcus Jooste, that used to have his offices just around the corner from mine in Stellenbosch, wiped out 200 billion rand. Now, that doesn't condone anything that's happened, but it's just to show you the perspective that these things happen. They happen all around the world, and we have been through worse. And whilst I will never condone the government's reaction to this, because they made plenty of mistakes. We in the Western Cape were beneficiaries from the chaos in KZN because they got their act together, learning vicariously through the trauma of others. But the government is facing multiple battles in multiple areas. COVID, vaccination, corruption, infighting, the economy that's stuffed. And a lot of the decisions made, for example, deploying the military quick enough, it's a resource game. The 25,000 troops that have been now sent into the field would cost us 600 million rand. We don't have 600 million rand. So that's not a good excuse, but it's just perspective. And I think if you look at what's happened, whilst there may be a few hundred, a few thousand, maybe tens of thousands of people that were involved in this terrible behavior, there's 60 million South Africans. The threat was it was going to spread, it hasn't. So we must understand that this is small groups of people doing damage for the greater majority. Because most people are wired to contribute. Most people are trying to do good. Most people are waking up every single morning to ensure that it's a little bit better tomorrow than it was today. And we must never, ever forget that. But what we must understand is that in times of uncertainty, in times of risk, we default down Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we start off looking at the basics, and then as we evolve as humans, as we get better, we kind of go up the food chain, so to speak. But what happened last week? Our fundamental safety was at issue. And therefore, we have to go back to the basics. And whilst safety on the Maslow's hierarchy is second, last week we saw that it's actually first. Are my family okay? And there were many moments last week that really kind of took my breath away and brought tears because they were so bad. But it was one of our clients saying that when he put his kids to bed, he dressed them in black and said to them, this is the exit plan. If you hear me screaming, we'll be going to that section of the garden so we can get out. Nobody wants to live like that with your children. So safety first. Once we've got safety right, then yes, shortages, and we saw that last week: food, shelter, fuel, telecoms. Because sadly, the way the world is today, if we don't have this, we don't have news, we don't have warning, we don't know where to go, we don't know what's coming. And in the absence of information, fear kind of goes through the roof. So we have to understand that these are the basics, and we need to make sure that we've got them in place, but we can also learn from them. Now, please, please don't go hoard baked beans, because I know people that are still eating baked beans that they bought in 1994. But you need to think about your choices. And one of the examples I used this week was somebody that was impacted because the Vodacom towers were down. I said, well, maybe going forward, husband needs to have Vodacom and wife needs to have MTN. And I'm just using that as a practical example, but we need to think these things through. We then also need to ensure that whilst I need to look after my safety, I want to ensure that friends and family are okay. And then you've seen already the Ubuntu-ness of South Africa coming together as a community. Because in these uncertain times, I have to look at my immediate future. And we're going to talk about that from a planning perspective, where you need to focus. It's the here and now that's most important. Don't talk to me about Rainbow Nation. Don't talk to me about the future. And Rebecca Davies wrote a very interesting article for Daily Maverick saying, don't talk to me about Mandela's legacy. Don't talk to me about Mandela's birthday. Because I'm tired of being a South African nation that needs to be resilient, that needs to bounce back, that always needs to suck it up. Why can't we be the friendly nation, the sexy nation, even the grumpy nation, anything but the resilient? And that's fine. That's where we're at. So we have to focus on the here and now. But then we need to look at where we've come from. Where have you come from? Where were you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Because especially if you've lost everything, and we've had clients that have lost everything, your identity goes into the here and now, and your desperation and your hopelessness. No, we have to look a little bit into the past to realize that this is just an event. I am more than just this event. And unless I've done that, I can't even start to think about where I'm going. Can't even start to think about that. So I have to look outside of the now into the past and go, okay, I am not that bad. And then we'll look at how do you even think about moving forward and going forward. Communication, the next point, something we don't learn. We hear things like, you should listen double as much as you speak. We don't really understand communication. And sadly, we're more connected than ever before, but I think our engagement level on communication is less than it's ever been before. This little box still has the ability to communicate with people. And voice notes are okay. Love it when people walk around like this. I now do it myself too, because it's a way of at least being better than a typed WhatsApp or a text message or an email. But talk to people. Get on the phone. Send them a voice note, not just a message. And don't just do it once. Because just like when somebody sadly passes away, outpouring of love, outpouring of support till the funeral, and then you're on your own. The after effects of this are going to linger around a longer. So you need to be talking to people, and ideally on the phone, often. And the sequence you should be thinking about, who do I talk to, goes through those that you see on your screen there. First and foremost, your family. You look after those closest to you, even the outlaws that you don't really like, and your brother that pissed you off that you don't want to see anymore. Great opportunity in times of chaos and uncertainty to talk to family. The next one is your staff, because your staff are looking to you for guidance, for inspiration, for leadership. They're not understanding the uncertainties of what this is going to do. They might not be affected, but they directly, but indirectly they are. So you want to be talking to your staff. You then need to understand that you, humans, we're social beings. And it's so easy to neglect that social part when we go through this, because we've got businesses to run, we've got finances to worry about, we've got family to look after. Yeah, but we get a lot of energy, a lot of support from our social network. So reach out, talk to your friends. We might have run out of beers to have together, and hopefully Uncle Cyril opens that for us next week. But, get together, talk with your friends. Then before clients, you talk to suppliers. And you'll see later when you talk about planning, your supply chain is going to become critical, because the disaster is not now. A lot of supply chain networks have an overhang that might be good for another 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. But you don't want to be getting those surprises later on. And you want to be hearing what the impact is to them too, because if there's an impact to your suppliers, guess what? There's an impact to you. And I won't know that if I'm not talking to them. Then I want to obviously talk to my customers, reassure them, and I'll give you some ideas around how you can do that. And then I want to also make sure that as a collective, as a community, we can reach out, both for support that I'm offering, but also the ability to ask for support at the end of the day. And I think the most important thing to do if you have a business is to communicate if you're still open for business and how you're still open for business, because there's uncertainty. Are you open? Aren't you open? Do you have stock? Don't you have stock? Are you working the same areas? Are all your branches open? Can you deliver? Can't you deliver? Will there be shortages? Won't there be? Who knows? And in the absence of that information, those facts, you get all sorts of perceptions that you'll see now that just run away with us. So make sure that you're communicating how you're open for business, if you're open for business, and what the situation is, so that people are on board and know exactly where you're at and how they can engage with you. And if it's business as usual, great, then say that. It's a good opportunity to engage with people, to say, despite everything, we're good to go. It's business as usual, which is perfect in the process. So again, this little box has fueled a great new term called fake news. And the truth is not always necessarily the truth, is it? And we get a little distracted by what's going on, what's not going on. We pass things around, we get things, we don't know if it's true. And it's a huge problem. And I said last week to my wife one night, I said, I long for the days, I know I'm sounding like an old fart, where the news was once a day from 7 to 7:30. They did local news, international news, market news, finance news, sport news, the weather, all in a half an hour. It was reasonably well researched, and that was it. And now we're being bombarded from all these angles. So the truth versus the truth. Is it the real truth? Now, in a conversation, there's 3 sides to the truth, or 3 sides to the reality. Mine, yours, and the actual truth. So we're getting a little bit confused, and that's why I put there fact versus reality. What's the difference? Well, fact is, it is actually true. Reality is, well, it's my reality. It's my truth, which may not be the truth. And it's not that easy to discern today which is which, because of the way information flows, where it comes from, and stuff like that. I love seeing sunny blue skies with riots going on. And people say to me, oh, they rioting outside of Parliament. And go, well, just look out the window, you'll see it's grey, it's gloomy, and those vehicles are from the 90s. Stop sending that crap around. I have an acquaintance, I won't mention who he is, that phones me to share the bad news about what's supposedly happening, and don't drive here and don't go there. None of it ever happens. So the more we don't ascertain what is fact versus the reality, the more my perception becomes the reality for me. And if that's the reality for me, I share it with other people. So if that's the perception for me that now becomes my reality, I need to face it and do something about it. Because if I want to immigrate, and I had to help somebody through this the other day, they're emotional, they're gutful, they've had enough, they want out. Okay, let's do something about it. Where do you want to go? What do houses cost? Can you get in through a grandfather that was born there? Do you have the money to go through a visa route where you buy property? Can you afford to sell your house, pay 3 years of medical aid fees up front, get your family there, pay for containers, buy new cars? Let's assess the truth. Let's investigate it. Let's do something about it. And for this person in particular, when we'd gone through it, they don't want to live where they could buy property to get in. They can't get in where they want to get in. They can't afford to go anyway. And at the end of the conversation says, oh, well, I suppose I'm stuck with this. No, you now have a new truth. The truth is you are limited in your options, but therefore you are empowered to make choices with the limited options you have. But when we're sitting back and looking at this and just bitching and moaning and uncertain and unsure, we never really confront the truth. We don't do something about it, because the truth will always be the truth, whether we like it or not. And then even if we don't like it, we can do something about it. Now, the other bit, just quickly, generally speaking, don't share news. And I know we all do it, and we share on WhatsApp and we share on Facebook and we phone people and we send on emails. Don't, because you don't know if it's true. I even look at something sometimes and go, sure, this is looks very real, and going, but there's something that says it's not right. Let the news people share news. Let's get back to looking at one or two sources for our information and not being bombarded with the nonsense that's coming our way. Because I want to headbutt a whole lot of people that share nonsense around. Because the next point becomes relevant. Most people can't handle the news. So most people don't actually care about the news either. So we react to the headline on the pole that we drive past. We see on News 24 the headline and we react to that. Well, that's their job, to get you to read the news. We read the first paragraph and we get angry. We don't read the whole article. We don't read 2 or 3 different people's view on the same article. We don't wait until tomorrow when the real facts come out. We don't then look at the documentary 10 years later that unpacks the truth. We react to limited information. Now, so rather have none of it. And I have a friend who's a very high-powered CEO, and her view is this: the right news, if there's really a problem, will find me. I don't look or engage or go out to get any news. If the building's burning, somebody will come fetch me. If there's an atomic bomb that goes off near where I need to be worried about, somebody will tell me. But she gets off the media completely brilliant. All you must do, all the news, everything, different perspectives, different channels, different mediums, different ways, so that you can see the thread through the middle. Now, most people can't handle that. We get too depressed, we get too angry, we get too distracted, we don't have the time, etc., etc. But you need to choose. You either must off it or all of it. But you can't do a half-assed attempt and react to the headline, as most people do. And then we must understand that because of the reality of the fake news issues, because of the drumming up of division and uncertainty and all the rest of it, it's a process to reestablish that trust. It's a process to go find the truth. It doesn't just come on again tomorrow. So let's rather be on the right side of that than the wrong side of that, which is critical. So as you're sitting there in your chair today, do you see a future for you in this country? And you just type in yes or no. Pretty simple. If you see a future for yourself in this country, you type in yes. If you don't see a future for yourself in the country, type no. And if you say no, that's perfectly okay. If you're not sure, then maybe type that in too. Or if you used to have it and you don't, well, maybe you lost it. So, and there's a lot of yeses and there's a no, there's an absolutely yes, a couple of yeses and all the rest of it. And it's easy to say that. And I hear that all the time. People say, oh, you're not brilliant. I see a future. I'm proudly South African. But I'm worrying about immigrating and I'm, researching, moving and all the rest of it. But here's the trick. If you do not see a future, clearly, you won't build it. And thanks, Eve, for saying I'm having my doubts, because a lot of people are, and that's okay. If you don't see a future, you won't build it. Now, never mind what's happened now. I had a conversation on Monday with somebody who's really going through a bad patch in their marriage. I said, well, if you don't see a future for it, you won't do the work to fix the problem. So it doesn't help to start thinking about, do I want to go to therapy? No. Do I see a future? Yes or no? If yes, am I prepared to work towards that future? Because most of us want to go straight into fixing the problem or doing what's necessary. No, no, no. You have to first see the future. If you don't see the future in your relationship, people that are terminally ill and don't see the future in their health, they give up. And sadly, that, fast tracks them passing away. If you don't see a future, you won't do the work that needs to be done to get there. So that's the first thing, is can you see the future? And how do you go about finding it? You first go back to your true beliefs. Why am I here? What have I set out to do? Why do I think I'm called to do what I am? Why am I in the situation? What are my beliefs about the future? And you'll see now how I'm going to help you to see the other side of what the near-term beliefs may be. But then you need to understand it starts with me. I need to find a way to see that future. It's what's in it for me. That's the WIIFM. It's not what's in it for my kids or my staff or my business or, the greater good of South Africa. No, it starts with me. What's in it for me? If I don't get benefit, yes, I might want to change the world, but I need to start first. How's it going to serve me? And then I'm going to build the steps to get there. Because if I cannot see it, I won't build it. But if you're in a toxic environment, guess what? Toxicity spreads. You cannot be in a toxic environment and think that you're going to get, butterflies and roses. It doesn't work like that. So if you're in a toxic environment in your head, you need to get out your head. You need to go clear it. You need to go for a walk. You need to talk to somebody else. You need to see a different perspective. If you're in a toxic environment with your business, with your staff, with your friends, for your family, you have to find different conversations to have. Because you're not going to be able to focus on what's in it for me for the future if I'm in that toxic environment. So the environment plays a big role. But then I need to go back sometimes. And you've all heard that saying, you take a step back to go forward. What is my original dream? Whether it be for my children, for my future, for my country, for my business, for my health, doesn't matter. What is that dream? What was that? Is it still relevant? And that's what I had to face in my business in the last 2 weeks. What was that original dream? What am I going after? Is it mine? Do I still believe in it? Can I see it being a future here? Because if I don't, well, what's the point? And I was able to find that and go, yes, the dream hasn't changed. It's been clouded, a lot of dirty, stinky stuff has been thrown at it, but it doesn't change the dream. Okay, if the dream hasn't changed, then I can see the future. Or maybe the dream has changed. Okay, then create that new future. Because then I can look at, again, the good old stuff that we talk about, and okay, now I can include it as part of my vision. I could see it as my purpose for being here, my sense of why. And now I will move towards that. And now when I'm ready, remember what I said, the what's in it for me, I'll move towards that. Now it's easy to look at saying, okay, who will benefit? And maybe I'm just going to build a business. I'm going to employ some people. I'm going to do good for my family, and I'm going to do good for the people that work for me. Great, you're making a contribution. What will be your legacy? Your children will be your legacy. Your business, your staff will be your legacy. Other people want to do something much bigger, much broader. That's okay. It's your choice. Remember, it's yours. So you start first with yourself. You see that future gain, and then as you unfold, the scale of that will ripple into contribution and legacy. But if you don't see it, you won't build it. And it was interesting, this year, our business's theme is extreme ownership. And it comes from the book by Jocko Willink that's up on your screen. I'm not going to be motivated every day. But if I see the future, I can take extreme ownership to help me get there. If I don't, I won't. And I'll get distracted, and I'll get procrastination creeping in, and I'll one day have a great day, one day have a bad day. And eventually I end up resenting myself, or more importantly, those around me, because it's their fault why I'm not moving forward. And it's only because I don't see the future. And we talk about in our business, we talk about it being above the point of power or below the point of power. It's easy for us as humans to default into blaming others. It was always Jacob Zuma's fault, and then he left. Then it was COVID's fault. Sadly still around. or we find excuses, or we go into a sense of denial. It's not so easy to live above the point of power. But if we don't, we are victims to our daily lives. We're victims to our future instead of proactively driving that forward, which is a much better place to be. So let's look about you saying where you are and how do you move this now forward. And no matter how bad it is for you and however bad you're feeling or however bad you've been directly impacted, by a mere fact that you're on this Zoom call today, there are billions of people that are worse off than you. More people die every year of starvation than COVID could ever kill. But then we've got this notion of the theory of gratitude. Theory of gratitude is the biggest waste of time. Oh no, I'm grateful for my health. No, you're not. You're grateful for your health when you get sick or when you see somebody close to you get sick. Till then, you take it for granted. Oh, I'm grateful for my family. Are you really? Do you tell them? So in times like this, when our foundations have been shook, we need to get into the practice of gratitude. We need to tell those we're grateful for that we're grateful. We need to, if we're grateful for what I have, shelter, warmth, food, then how can I reach out to help others? Where can I go contribute? What can I do physically for other people? Because it empowers my gratitude, but it also creates a distraction in my brain from my own issues, whether mental or physical. And then most importantly, who can you do that contribution with? And if you've got somebody that's struggling, a friend, a family member, a staff member, a client, a neighbor, take them with to go do something good. Because it takes the focus off me and puts it into others. And the theory of gratitude becomes the practice, and it gives me perspective. It doesn't change my lot in life, but it gives me perspective, which will help me move forward. And then just like I mentioned with the somebody sadly passing away, and then after the funeral, you're on your own. We will have ripple effects and lasting effects of this that will carry on for a long time. Don't just do that goodness once off. Try and find a way to make it a habit, an ongoing, whether it's a charity you like supporting, whether it's something small that you like doing. I know a lady that's just knitted 400, her and a couple of her friends, 400 beanies, scarves, things like that they give away every winter. Great. It seems small because it's just crochet in front of the TV, it has a massive impact. So how can you find something to do good for others and then make it a habit? And if you've got, a family, and if your business family is your staff, both home and work, include them in that as much as possible. So, okay, this is helping now get a little bit of perspective, maybe where I need to focus, where I need to go. So are there opportunities? And sadly, in any crisis, there always are. The gold at the end of the rainbow, there's always a rainbow that will come out again. So how do I go look for those opportunities? Now, the first thing you need to understand is that there comes a warning with these opportunities, because nobody wants you to be the arse that's exploiting other people's pain. And somebody the other day said to me, capitalize. And they were using it in a very nice way. I said, no, be careful of your language. If you're in an aluminium shop fitting kind of business today, you're going to be coining it. If you're in communications, in security, in cleaning, in mop-up, you're going to be coining it. That's not good or bad. That's just the nature of where we're at. But your language that you use is important. I'm here to support, add value, serve, assist, guide, help. Those kind of words are the critical ones that you need to be using. So your language becomes very important, and your intentions. Because we saw last year with COVID, some really ill-intent people prying on the global pandemic. No, you don't want to be that person. So your intentions are good and pure, and you're doing it from a help perspective. But understand that we have to rebuild this together, and that's where that be considerate and compassionate comes in. All people are going through this. So where can we guide? Where can we be flexible? If we've got 50% deposit up front and then we'll only do the rest of the work, well, maybe some people you'll have to have a bit of different rules that have been taken out. So you have to look at ways how you can be flexible, how you can be understanding, how you can be compassionate, knowing full well that you're looking after yourself. And often the opportunities don't come just from where you're looking at the world. Get some people around you, brainstorm it, think it through. You might not have been doing something in the past that you can now start doing. You might have something that's working well in one area that you can duplicate and have it work very well in another area. So find the opportunities for you and those around you by seeing where you can serve more. Because here's the reality. The richest people in the world impact positively the most people. Now, I'm not talking about illegal things because that always ends up often 6 foot under. But the people that do good and add the most amount of value end up being the richest people in the world. And I said this in another talk the other day. Somebody said, sure, Harry, that's a bit harsh. I said, well, it's true. If you don't have enough money in your bank account, look at where you can impact more people positively. Because the more people you impact positively, the more money will flow to your bank account. You offer value and you get remunerated in return. The richest man in the world at the moment, Jeff Bezos, impacts positively, and some people will say negatively. Of course, it'll always be the good or the bad. He impacts positively more people than anybody else. Amazon will deliver 1 million packages every minute or something stupid. That's quite a positive impact. So brainstorm those ideas with those around you. And then let's look at the planning part, because the planning part starts first short term. And the short-term focus, skip the points 2 and 3 there, is cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, and your supply chain. You have to be like a hawk on the cash flow, watching your expenses, watching what's going out, what's coming in. Just because debtors were paying in the past doesn't mean they're going to be able to pay as easily. Just because people were supplying in the past doesn't mean they're going to be supplying as easily. So you want to be watching your cash flow like a hawk. If you have had damage, you should already have been filling in the paperwork, making sure you've got a case number to do the claims. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty about Sasria, and look what the private insurance companies did last year with COVID, trying to get out of making payments. I think there's a lot of positivity to take from the fact that claims will be paid. The volume will ensure that you might have delays. So again, managing cash flow is important. But as I said to somebody the other day that was bringing up the issue around, people didn't want to pay out insurance last year. Yeah, but that's private companies that are watching their bottom line. All those private companies are looking to one source, which is Sasria, to pay out these claims. And if there's any issues there, you'll have every private company on the planet making sure that somebody else carries the weight of these payouts. So you must get your claims in as soon as possible if you have been impacted. And then managing that supply chain, both for now and the next few months, is going to become critical, even if you're not in Gauteng or KZN. Now, most people forget or don't know that Gauteng and KZN make up 50% of South Africa's GDP. Just under 50% of the population, but 50% of the GDP. So there will be ripple effects, and you just want to make sure, are you going to be impacted or not, so that we can deal with the now. Once I've got the now under control, I then went and idealized a future. I went in and believed in what the future can be again. Then I put blinkers on and I focus on that as my long-term destination, so that I'm not worried about all these little speed bumps and all these little distractions and all these little issues. I'm managing short-term, but I'm focusing long-term. And therefore I am able to move towards that brighter future. Otherwise, I'm going to be running around in circles, getting really, really hurtful, tired, irritated, and we definitely don't want that. And we don't want surprises. The other important critical thing is to make sure that you share these plans with staff, with suppliers, with customers, where people are involved and where they may be indirectly involved. Because you're going to need their help, their influence, their support, wherever they're coming from, to help you realize those short-term and long-term plans. So don't do them and then hold on to them. Make sure that you are sharing them a lot broader out the process. Because we have a formula that we coach to, and it's called Be, Do, Have, which is your formula for success. You start by understanding what it is that you want to have. And by building that future in your mind, you've done that. Then you come back and look at this side of the equation and go, okay, what is it that I need to do? And who do I need to become in the process? And you'll see when we talk about leadership in point 11, that's very critical. So I need to become that person that can do the right things to get to what it is that I want to have. So this part is a very important part, and something that I found huge value in this week in particular, or last week. We have a one-sided view of how things are at the moment, and they're not pretty. And not just the rioting and the looting, not just coronavirus, there's a lot of other things. So in times of negativity, we bring friends and create more negativity. But that's one side of the coin. Now, it doesn't help to think that you're going to see the other side of the coin is just going to take away the negativity. No. I just want you to see both. Because with both, I have balance. With both, I have perspective. With both, I have energy to move forward because I can see the other side. So I want you to think about what is the wonderful memories that you have around this country. And I just, for fun, started a little challenge last week, 10 days, one memory a day, one photo a day, tag 10 people to share the good. Many people aren't playing with me. That's okay. I'm benefiting from it because I'm trying to think, I remember that day. Let me go see if I've got a photo. Or I'm scrolling through my phone, looking at photos going, oh my word, I remember that day. That was so cool. And I'm sharing them. And the sharing is good for other people because it's reminding them. They're seeing themselves in those photos on the memories, or they're thinking, oh, we did something similar. And that's good for me. And I can share that good with other people. And that's helping me balance the reality of where we are, because I know without a shadow of a doubt, mentally, that there is good, that there have been more good times than bad. But I don't always feel that way when I go through it, and neither do you. And I want to just briefly share these three up on the screen because there's many, but these are just three that have a different kind of feel. On your left is my mother-in-law and her husband. My father-in-law passed away a few years ago. And in December, we went to Cape Point. It was howling, it was miserable, and she stood there with tears in her eyes. She turned 70 this year. She's never been to Cape Point, and she just saw the beauty, and she thought, Fossie would have loved to have seen this. And she just enjoyed that moment for the first time. And it was so nice to be able to share that with her. And, there's two of my monsters. The oldest one wasn't with, and my wife was taking the photo. The one in the middle was a few years ago when we did Otter Trail with my oldest son. And in the morning, we were chasing. We'd left at 2 o'clock to get to the river crossing at low tide. And he was kind of looking around, being a typical teenager. That was my view. And I said, hey, come. We've got a deadline. We need to get on. And he said, Dad, but just look at the stars. And I looked up and I went, yeah, so? He says, I've never seen anything like that. This is so beautiful. And I still said to him, terrible father I am. I said, what? Yeah, that's not bad, but I've seen much better than that. There's a lot of places you can go in South Africa where it's much better than that. And he turned around and said to me, yeah, but you've never taken me there. This is true. And then the other one, again with my mother-in-law, that was just after my father-in-law passed away. She was kind of 66, I think, thereabout. Her and her husband had never been to Kruger Park, never. My father-in-law worked for Spoornet in the Free State. They went to Natal, and that's pretty much it. And we were able to drive day in, day out through the Kruger Park and do that for the first time ever. And there are many, many, many memories. So I'd like you to find the same for you. And then I want to talk about leadership as the 11th point, because I too point lots of fingers at governments, not just here, but overseas too. But I also know that no government's going to fix this. If you look at the world, if you look at the issues, governments don't fix this. People fix this. Which people? Me, you. We need to lead. And we need to lead ourselves first. The struggles, the mindset, the challenges, the issues, we need to lead ourselves first. That will never be perfect, so we can't wait till that's perfect, but then we need to lead our friends and our family where we've got direct influence. We need to be the example. And that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. My daughter often says to me, no, but Dad, it's easy for you because you're always happy. I'm not. I choose to be happy, but I have challenges and I have to face them. So, you have to lead those around you. If you're privileged enough to have staff, and I know it doesn't always feel like that, if you're privileged enough to have staff, they need you to lead, to be perspective, to be positive, to be focused, to be negative sometimes, to share the truth and the reality of where you're at. So you need to lead staff. Of course, we need to lead our customers and our suppliers too, because they're critical to our businesses. We are really intertwined. And the more we lead self-direct people around us, the more we will lead the community, the more that will impact the country. You can't go from here to impacting the whole country. Some of us might want to. You have to start where you are, and we need to lead. And somebody said to me last week, said, well, Harry, how do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? There's no guarantee it won't. And I can guarantee you this, if we don't do what I'm going to say now, it will happen again in different formats, maybe. Hopefully not the same. We need to build bigger businesses. That's the only thing that's going to save South Africa. We need to build bigger businesses. Because if we build bigger businesses, we employ more people. If we build bigger businesses, we procure more services. If we build bigger businesses, we add more value to our customers. If we build bigger businesses, there's overflow that goes into government. Hopefully they'll start wasting less, goes into charities, goes into good causes, goes into helping our communities. But if we do not build bigger businesses, we've got shit, excuse the word. So we need to lead those that can in those opportunities and build bigger businesses. It is not negotiable. We love to moan about the government saying, oh, yeah, they're top heavy. They need to get rid of all these staff, stop paying them all this money. Okay. And then there's more people in the unemployment queue. No, we don't want that. Okay, so build a bigger business. Get on with it. That's what you need to do. That's the only way we're going to guarantee that this doesn't happen again. And I know I said 11 points. 11's not enough. And that's why I've added the 12th one in there. Enough is no longer enough, not for what we've been through. And on all fronts, we need to really take it to the next level. We need to over-service, over-communicate, over-deliver, over-care, over-lead. Don't overthink. That's probably the only thing you don't have to do, because you must balance thinking with action. But we need to take it to the next level. And it's really, really important there, that connection. That's why I added there, hugs are good. People are craving connection. People are craving that feeling of just, arm around the shoulder going, it's going to be okay. And despite the fact that we might not be able to see it, we might not feel it, we might not think it all the time, we've got each other. And if you're scared of COVID, then do a virtual hug or something. But if you can, do a hug. People like hugs, and it's good for people. And maybe you, listening to this, need to go and ask those around you, listen here, I need a hug. Because we really need to remember that whilst we're there for others, we also need it for ourselves. And then that's why I started with we, the royal we, the collective, will make sure that we can move forward. You're not going to do this on your own. Nobody can. No one person's going to save this country. No one person's going to right the wrongs. No one person is going to impact the economy. We all need to play our part as per the leadership on the slide before. And then I can promise you that we will get through it. If I do my bit, and if this has allowed you to get a bit of perspective for you to do a bit, and the next person to do a bit, and the next person to do a bit, we will get the snowball effect. Because I know most South Africans are wonderful people, positive people. I know that every single human being, whilst they don't always do it, is wired to contribute. I look at naughty kids and I go, there's no such thing as a naughty kid. Kids are generally good. Of course, they test their limits and try their luck, and there will always be 0.0001 shyster % somewhere. But generally, we all want a better tomorrow than we have today. One step forward so that there's progress. And then I can look around and see, I'm not the only one that's wanting one step forward. I'm not the only one that's getting up every day just to do a little bit better today than it was yesterday. And if we take back that leadership, if we take back control on these 12 areas I've now shared with you, then we don't have to worry about what the government does. We don't have to worry about what the media says, because in our sphere of influence, we're dealing with the now, and we're focused with blinkers on where we want to take this. And if you believe in the future, you will build it. I believe in the future. My whole team of coaches believe in the future, and we will do our bit. So please, I encourage you to do your bit too.